September 1st, 1939, 4:45 in the morning. The world is still asleep, but in the pre-dawn darkness along the Polish-German border, something monstrous is stirring. For months, Europe has teetered on the edge of catastrophe. Diplomats have negotiated. Leaders have postured. The specter of another great war, barely 20 years after the last one ended, has haunted every chancellery, every newspaper, every nervous conversation in cafes from Paris to Prague. But now, the time for talking is over. In less than an hour, the fragile peace that has held Europe together will shatter like glass. The match will be struck, the fuse will be lit, and the second great conflagration of the 20th century, a war that will consume continents, claim tens of millions of lives, and reshape human civilization itself, will begin. This is September 1st, 1939. This is the day Germany invades Poland. This is the day the world catches fire. And you are about to witness how it happened, hour by hour, decision by decision, life by life. Welcome to World War II, day by day. 4:45 a.m., the German-Polish border. Without warning, without a formal declaration of war, the German Wehrmacht unleashes hell. Along a front stretching over 1,750 miles, from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Carpathian Mountains in the south, more than 1.5 million German troops surge across the border into Poland. 60 divisions, 6 armored divisions, 8 motorized divisions. Behind them, the full industrial might of the Third Reich, 2,750 tanks, 2,315 aircraft, and over 9,000 artillery pieces. This is not the static, trench-bound warfare of the First World War. This is something new, something the world has never seen before. The Germans have a name for it: Blitzkrieg, lightning war. At precisely 4:45 a.m., German artillery opens fire on Polish positions near the town of WWII. The ancient town, home to 16,000 civilians, has no military significance, no fortifications, no army garrison. It is simply in the way. For the next 5 hours, wave after wave of German Luftwaffe Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers, their sirens wailing like banshees, rain destruction on WWII. The town's hospital, clearly marked with a red cross, is hit first. Then the city center, then the residential districts. By 9 a.m., 1,200 civilians are dead. 75% of the town is rubble. WWII is burning. And it is just the beginning. To the north, at 4:47 a.m., just 2 minutes after the artillery barrage begins, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein, ostensibly on a courtesy visit to the free city of Danzig, opens fire on the Polish military depot at Westerplatte. The ancient fortress, defended by just 182 Polish soldiers, will hold out for 7 days against overwhelming odds. But on this morning, as 11-inch shells tear into the fortress walls, those defenders can only brace themselves and prepare for the onslaught they know is coming. All along the frontier, the pattern repeats itself. German tanks, organized into fast-moving armored columns supported by dive bombers and motorized infantry, punch through Polish defenses. The Poles, brave and determined, fight back with everything they have. But they are outgunned, outnumbered, and facing tactics their military doctrine was never designed to counter. The Polish army has 39 divisions, roughly 950,000 men. They have cavalry. They have courage. They have 880 tanks, most of them light models, scattered among infantry divisions. They have 400 aircraft, mostly obsolete. What they don't have is time or luck or help. At 5:40 a.m., German forces cross the border near the town of Mokra. Here they encounter the Wolinska Cavalry Brigade, Polish lancers who will become the subject of one of the war's most persistent myths. Later, Nazi propaganda will claim that these brave but foolish Poles charged German tanks with lances and sabers, embodying the futility of resisting the Reich. It's a lie. The Polish cavalry were well-trained mounted infantry who used horses for mobility and fought on foot with anti-tank rifles and artillery. At Mokra, they will hold the German 4th Panzer Division for an entire day, destroying several tanks and inflicting heavy casualties. But one brigade, no matter how heroic, cannot stop an entire army. By noon, German spearheads have penetrated up to 15 miles into Polish territory at multiple points. Polish communication systems, targeted by Luftwaffe bombers and German special forces, begin to break down. Reports flood into Warsaw, contradictory and terrifying. The border is collapsing. The Germans are everywhere. At the Wolf's Lair, Adolf Hitler's field headquarters in East Prussia, the Führer is ecstatic. Everything is proceeding according to plan. The gamble he has taken, invading Poland despite British and French guarantees to defend Polish sovereignty, appears to be paying off. Hitler has spent months engineering this moment. In March, he seized what remained of Czechoslovakia, breaking the Munich Agreement and proving that appeasement was dead. In April, he renounced Germany's non-aggression pact with Poland. In August, in one of history's most cynical diplomatic maneuvers, he signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with the Soviet Union, secretly dividing Eastern Europe into German and Soviet spheres of influence. Poland's fate was sealed the moment Stalin and Hitler shook hands. Now, as his armies advance, Hitler tells his generals that the destruction of Poland is just the first step. Soon he will turn west. Soon France and Britain will fall. Soon all of Europe will bend the knee to the Thousand-Year Reich. But in Berlin, not everyone shares his confidence. 11 a.m., Warsaw. Inside the Polish Foreign Ministry, officials frantically work the telephones, reaching out to Britain and France. The alliance must hold. The guarantees must be honored. Poland cannot stand alone. Polish Foreign Minister Josef Beck sends urgent cables to London and Paris. Germany has invaded. We are under attack. We invoke our mutual defense treaties. In London, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain faces the moment he has spent a year trying to avoid. Just 12 months ago, he stood on a tarmac waving a piece of paper proclaiming peace for our time after meeting with Hitler in Munich. He genuinely believed, perhaps he needed to believe, that he could satisfy Hitler's territorial ambitions through negotiation. But now, the illusion is shattered. Hitler has lied, the promises were worthless, and Britain must either honor its commitment to Poland or reveal itself as a paper tiger. But even now, even as German bombs fall on Polish cities, Chamberlain hesitates. He sends Hitler an ultimatum, not a declaration of war, but a request that German forces withdraw. He still hopes, somehow, that this can be resolved without plunging Europe into another catastrophic war. In Paris, the response is similar. French Premier Daladier mobilizes the French army but does not immediately declare war. France has not fully recovered from the bloodletting of 1914–18. The nation has no appetite for another generation of young men fed into the meat grinder. Daladier, like Chamberlain, clings to the fading hope that diplomacy might still prevail. Across the Atlantic, in Washington, D.C., President Franklin Delano Roosevelt is awakened in the night with news of the invasion. The United States, still deeply insular, still scarred by its experience in the First World War, will remain neutral. But Roosevelt has known for years that American neutrality cannot last forever. The world is choosing sides, and eventually, America will have to choose as well. In Moscow, Joseph Stalin watches with satisfaction. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact has bought him time and territory. In just over 2 weeks, Soviet forces will invade Poland from the east, seizing their share of the spoils. For now, Stalin is content to let Hitler take all the risk while the Red Army prepares to reap the rewards. But back in Poland, as the sun climbs higher in the sky, there is no time for geopolitics or grand strategy. There is only survival. Let me tell you about David Rubinovich. He is 12 years old. He lives in the village of Kryno in central Poland. He is Jewish. He likes to read. He helps his father in their small shop. He dreams, as 12-year-old boys do, of growing up, of adventures, of a future. On September 1st, 1939, David begins keeping a diary. His first entry is simple, almost innocent. The war began on Friday. That day we heard the thunder of guns all the time. Towards the evening we saw German airplanes for the first time. In the evening we went to bed dressed. Went to bed dressed. 4 words that contain an entire world of fear. The knowledge that at any moment you might need to run. That your home might not be safe. That childhood itself has become a luxury you can no longer afford.
David's diary will continue for 3 more years, documenting life under German occupation, the creation of the ghetto, the slow destruction of his community. In 1942, David and his family will be deported to Treblinka, where they will be murdered in the gas chambers. He will never see his 13th birthday. But on this day, September 1st, 1939, David is still alive, still writing, still hoping. He is one voice among millions, one story among countless untold stories of that terrible day. In the Polish city of Łódź, a mother named Hela holds her infant daughter close as air raid sirens wail for the first time. She doesn't yet know that her city will soon be renamed Litzmannstadt, absorbed directly into the Reich, and that she will spend the next 6 years hiding, starving, and praying for liberation. In the free city of Danzig, ethnic Germans pour into the streets, cheering as German troops march through the city. They wave swastika flags. They sing the Horst Wessel song. They believe they are witnessing a glorious moment of national reunification. They cannot imagine how this victory will eventually lead to their own city being reduced to rubble, to millions of German refugees fleeing westward in 1945, to the complete erasure of German Danzig and its rebirth as Polish Gdansk. Near the border, a young Wehrmacht soldier named Hans writes a letter home to his mother in Bavaria. He is 19 years old. This is his first combat. He describes the advance, the excitement, the fear. He tells her not to worry. He promises he'll be home by Christmas. He won't.
By the time this war ends, 6 years from now, over 5.3 million German soldiers will be dead. Hans will be one of them. And in Warsaw, Polish President Ignacy Maszczycki broadcasts to the nation. His voice is steady, defiant. Citizens of the Republic, the enemy has crossed our borders. He attacks from the air, seeking to spread terror. But Poland will fight. Poland will not surrender. Poland will prevail. The people listening believe him. They have no choice but to believe him, because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate. By evening on September 1st, the full scope of Germany's invasion becomes clear. In the north, German forces have cut the Polish corridor, the strip of territory that gives Poland access to the Baltic Sea, isolating Polish forces in the Gdynia area. The 19th Panzer Corps drives toward Warsaw, covering ground at a pace that would have been unimaginable in the trench warfare of 1914 to 1918. In the south, the 14th Army under General Wilhelm List crosses into Poland from Slovakia, Germany's client state, opening a second front and threatening to encircle Polish forces in the south. In the air, the Luftwaffe has achieved near-total superiority. Polish airfields have been hit repeatedly. Polish fighters, brave but hopelessly outnumbered, are being shot down at a catastrophic rate. By the end of the day, the Polish Air Force has lost nearly half its operational aircraft. But the Poles do not break. They bend, they fall back, they regroup, and they fight. At the Battle of Mokra, The Wolinska Cavalry Brigade continues its desperate stand against the 4th Panzer Division. Using prepared defensive positions, anti-tank guns, and even 2 antiquated tankettes, the Polish cavalrymen inflict heavy casualties on the Germans throughout the day. When darkness finally falls, the Poles withdraw in good order, having delayed the German advance by a full day. It's a tactical victory, but strategically, it changes nothing.
Along the Bzura River, Polish forces prepared defensive positions, hoping to slow the German advance on Warsaw. The Poznan Army and the Pomorze Army, though under constant air attack, maintained their cohesion and fighting spirit. But the mathematics of war are brutally simple. Poland is fighting alone. Germany has the initiative, the numbers, and the momentum. And with each passing hour, the noose tightens. At 8 p.m., Polish Commander-in-Chief, Marshal Edward Reis-Smigli, reviews the day's reports at his headquarters. The picture is grim, but not yet hopeless. The border defenses have been breached, yes, but the main Polish armies remain intact. If Britain and France enter the war, if relief comes from the West, there is still a chance. Everything depends on the Allies. Everything depends on whether the guarantees will be honored. Marshal Reis-Smigli looks at the map, at the red arrows showing German advances, at the blue symbols representing his battered but unbroken divisions. He issues orders for a fighting withdrawal. Fall back to prepared defensive lines. Preserve the army's strength. Hold Warsaw at all costs. Buy time for the British and French to mobilize. Just buy time. September 1st, 1939 is not yet over. But already its consequences are rippling outward like waves from a stone thrown into still water. In the immediate term, the invasion sets in motion a cascade of events that will unfold over the next few weeks.
On September 3rd, just 2 days from now, Britain and France will finally declare war on Germany, honoring their treaty obligations to Poland. But the declaration will be largely symbolic. No major offensive will be launched in the West to relieve pressure on Poland. The British Expeditionary Force will deploy to France, but it will dig in and wait. The French army, the largest in Western Europe, will conduct minor probing attacks in the Saarland, then pull back. This period will become known as the Phony War, or Sitzkrieg, a war in name only. Poland will be left to face Germany alone. On September 17th, in a move that seals Poland's fate, the Soviet Union will invade from the east. Caught between 2 totalitarian powers, facing enemies on all sides, the Polish military will collapse. Warsaw will hold out until September 27th in a heroic but doomed defense. The last Polish units will surrender on October 6th. Poland will cease to exist as an independent nation, divided between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union according to the secret protocols of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. But the consequences of this day extend far beyond the fate of Poland. September 1st, 1939 marks the beginning of a war that will last 2,194 days. It will spread to every inhabited continent. It will involve more than 100 million military personnel from over 30 countries. It will see battles fought in the deserts of North Africa, the jungles of Southeast Asia, the frozen steppes of Russia, and the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean.
The war that begins today will witness the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, including young Dawid Rubinovich, along with millions of Poles, Roma, disabled people, Soviet prisoners of war, and countless others deemed undesirable by Nazi ideology. It will see the development and use of atomic weapons, forever changing the nature of warfare and human civilization. It will end with Europe in ruins, over 70 million people dead, more than 3% of the world's population, and the old imperial powers shattered beyond repair. It will give birth to the United Nations, the Cold War, the State of Israel, the decolonization of Africa and Asia, and the modern world order we still inhabit today. All of that, all of it, begins here, begins today, September 1st, 1939. In Poland, this day will be remembered as Pierwsza września, the 1st of September, a date etched into national consciousness like July 4th is etched into American consciousness or November 11th into French memory. Every year, at 5:30 p.m. on September 1st, sirens sound across Poland. The entire nation stops. Cars pull over. People on the street stand still. A moment of silence for the day the storm broke, the day innocents died, the day everything changed. Because September 1st, 1939 proved something that the world had desperately wanted not to believe, that the trenches of the Somme, the gas attacks at Ypres, the millions dead in the Great War, the war to end all wars, had taught humanity nothing. The diplomats had failed. The politicians had failed. The League of Nations, created specifically to prevent such catastrophes, had failed. And now, a new generation would pay the price. But there is something else this day reveals, something that will sustain the world through the dark years ahead. Human courage, human resilience, the refusal to surrender even when surrounded, the determination to resist even when hope seems lost. The Polish soldier at Westerplatte, fighting from a fortress against a battleship.
The cavalryman at Mokra, standing his ground against tanks. The pilot, taking off in an obsolete fighter to face the Luftwaffe swarms. The mother, holding her child and refusing to show fear. The 12-year-old boy, picking up a pen and beginning to write, asserting through the simple act of bearing witness that his life matters, that he existed, that he will not be erased. These acts of resistance, small and large, armed and unarmed, military and civilian, will define the war to come. They will echo through the battles of Britain, Stalingrad, Normandy, and the Pacific. They will inspire resistance movements from France to Yugoslavia, from Norway to the Philippines. The war that begins today will test humanity's capacity for evil. But it will also test humanity's capacity for courage, sacrifice, and endurance. And that, perhaps, is the true legacy of September 1st, 1939. As darkness falls over Poland on this first day of September 1939, fires burn across the nation. Wielun is in ruins. Westerplatte still holds but barely. German forces have advanced up to 25 miles into Polish territory. Thousands are already dead, soldiers and civilians alike. In London and Paris, diplomats draft ultimatums they will send to Berlin. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler sleeps soundly, confident in his victory. In Moscow, Joseph Stalin waits, patient as a spider. In Washington, President Roosevelt knows that America's neutrality is temporary, that the Atlantic Ocean may not be wide enough to keep this war at bay. And in a small village in central Poland, a 12-year-old boy closes his diary, changes into his pajamas, and goes to bed. He doesn't know what tomorrow will bring. None of them do. But tomorrow will come, and the day after that, and the day after that. For 2,194 days, this war will grind on, and we will be here, every step of the way, to tell you what happened.
This was September 1st, 1939. The day Germany invaded Poland. The day the world caught fire. Tomorrow, on World War II Day by Day, Britain and France make their move.